Nathan, we are Champions for Christ is so excited to tell your story. I know it's truly a story of God's faithfulness, and so I want to start at the beginning. I know there's been a lot of people who have been really influential in your journey, so take us back to the beginning and those influential people that have really impacted you.
Yeah. Um, well, I grew up in England and in Wales in the UK with my family. I'd say my family were in those first years of my life were the big influence on me. These were the people I grew up around. You know, my mum, my dad, I have a twin brother, younger sister. Yeah, and we, we're a Christian family. Always went to church. Church was a really big part of my life. So the people at church were people I looked up to, and my dad has been the pastor of all the churches that I've grown up in. My mum's been involved in leading Sunday schools and other church groups. So as a family, we've always been quite heavily involved in church. So that's been a major influence on me. But yeah, my family, I'm blessed to have a loving family, and that's not just my immediate family. That's some of my happiest memories from childhood have been from from my grandparents or my cousins.
Yeah.
The times we've spent with them. So, and growing up in family really has been really a family that follows the Lord, and that's been really influential for me.
Absolutely. And how has that supportive family, that Christian upbringing, how has that environment shaped you?
Well, I'd say the main thing is the place of the Bible in our household.
Yeah.
It really had authority over what we did, not just over the kids, but even over my parents.
Right.
I was taught the Bible all the time. We read it every dinner time. We prayed before every meal. We sang songs, Sunday school songs when I was younger, at meal times, with Bible verses in them, things from the Bible. So the Bible had such a big part in our family life, and that I grew up then knowing the Bible, knowing all the stories, knowing the good news about Jesus, knowing about sin and all these things. So that was really powerful in terms of my understanding of the Christian faith when growing up. I'd also say that I was very impacted in terms of my interests from my childhood. So my family is very musical, so naturally I learned music. My parents were always doing music stuff, and my dad taught me piano, and then I went on to do other things. So yeah, music has been a big part of my life. My love of nature, that's come from the amount of times we've gone hiking or out in nature, wildlife watching, all those kinds of things. I'd say I had as a kid like a big three in my interests. So I had music, I had nature, and I also had soccer. We just call it football.
Sure.
But that was, particularly when I was sort of end of primary school, so like 9, 10, 11, that my life was kind of all about soccer really.
Right.
And that was what I loved to do. Always played it with my twin brother and my friends from school and things. So that's kind of growing up, my interests and my understanding of the Christian faith.
Tell us about your choice to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and your choice then to be baptized as well.
I went to a Christian camp in Wales, and I was 10 or 11 at the time, and this was kind of where I felt the teaching I'd learnt from home and from church and all this stuff almost came together at that camp, and that's kind of where I think was the first time I really felt I knew what it meant to put my faith in Jesus. The main Bible passage of the week was Hebrews 11, of what we hope for but we don't see. I think God used that verse to really hit home what is faith. Well, it's that confident belief. I mean, it's that confident belief in Jesus, that belief that Jesus did all these things, that he's the Son of God, that he died, paid the punishment for my sin, rose again from the dead, and is now offering me salvation. And I realized in that moment that I do already believe, and all I need to do is accept Jesus' invitation. So that's what I did, and so I was baptized when I was 11.
Once you've made that choice to follow Jesus, there is a process of growing your faith. So I'm sure you went through that process.
The next few years were probably a quiet period in terms of my faith. You know, I believed in Jesus. I took it seriously. I fit into the church culture. I read my Bible every day, prayed every day. But I didn't really know the full extent of what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to what it means to be a Christian. And even though I believed in Jesus, looking back, I was still living for myself. As someone, early teenage years, teenage emotions and all these things. I was driven by wanting success in school and sports and music and things. And heaven just felt like a different lifetime away. It didn't really feel. I knew one day that would be reality, but it kind of felt like a different me, in a sense, and I was living for the here and now. But then when I was 16, we just come out of the first COVID lockdown we had in the UK. I think God really changed something in me. I found myself in my bedroom, having these prayer and worship times like I'd never done before. I didn't really know at the time, but looking back, I know that was God's Spirit moving in me, and He was giving me a desire to know Him, and since then, He has been growing my faith and teaching me more and more about Himself. I'm 20 now, so that was 4 years ago. Realizing that the more I walk with God, the more He shows me of Himself and of myself, and the more my faith is growing, and the more joy I have from being a Christian.
Tell us about your personal times spent with God through prayer and worship.
Yeah, well, like I said, when I was 16, these times, I'd be alone in my room, often with the lights off, curtains closed. I don't know why, but I always found that helpful. Some worship music on, helpful to focus on prayer.
Yeah.
And at that age, I was, I'd often listen to emotional secular music, but this was different. This was not just me reveling in my emotions. This was me worshiping God, and I think this was the first time in my life where worship and emotion had come together, and where I found myself rejoicing in God. I found myself surrendering to Him. I found myself, bowing, in reverence, and a real sense that as I was praying and as I was worshipping, that God was hearing me, that He was there. And since then, I would love to say it's been a constant upward curve, but that's never the case for prayer life. Often when I've got busy, then my prayer life has suffered. But in general, I have increased in my, I guess you could say increased in my prayer life, or gotten closer to God through prayer, and I pray more expectantly now than I ever did, because I realize that God does actually answer my prayers, and every time He does, I'm always amazed.
And when you were a guest on season 1 of We Are Champions for Christ podcast, you shared a little bit about how God changed your ambitions and your focus in life. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Towards the end of school, thinking about uni, I had this desire, really, the place I found myself most comfortable in, or the place I enjoyed the most, and wanted to be the most, was in nature. And I really wanted to do ecology for uni. Was really excited to do that. I started thinking about what I wanted to do for uni, and something I'd wanted to do for ages was to go into nature conservation. It might sound to lots of people not very interesting, but to me, I loved it. Loved wildlife. Was my favourite place to be was in nature, and so yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I had my whole life planned out. I knew what I wanted to do after uni. But yeah, one day my dad came to me and was like, "Hey, have you heard of London School of Theology?" And I was like, "No." Up until that point, my only kind of knowledge of musical unis were the ones, to go into the secular music industry, and that wasn't really somewhere that I kind of wasn't sure if I'd want to go down there anyway. So I'd kind of thought, okay, music, I won't take that any further than where I've got it so far. But yeah, so I looked into London School of Theology, and I actually ended up going to an open day, and I kind of went with the expectancy that I would leave and be like, no, this probably isn't the place for me. But actually, the opposite happened, and I left really feeling like, wow, I think this might be where God wants me to go. And kind of throughout this time, the kind of year leading up to applying, I ended up feeling, I felt really strongly that God wanted me to go into ministry. So I wasn't sure what that looked like, but I felt like He wanted me to go down the music route, to go to London School of Theology. So I ended up obeying, and I'm really glad I did, because here I am, having been there for 2 years, got 1 more year left, and I know absolutely this is where God wanted me to be. And I've learnt so much and matured in so many ways that I wouldn't have otherwise.
The missions trip that you participated in, Reach Mallorca, seems to have had a big impact on you, but also on the other people that you were able to reach as well.
Yeah, so Reach Mallorca is a mission organisation. Well, it's kind of a group of organisations come together to basically reach out with the gospel to the whole island of Mallorca, with the aim to reach every single person on the island. And yeah, so I went with 250 other people, mostly from Germany and Switzerland, and to share the gospel to those in the party zones. I found this was an incredible experience for me in terms of seeing God work. So many people came back with crazy testimonies, and I had some really powerful encounters with people as well. I remember this one person in Magaluf, which was the English-speaking party zone, and me and my friend, we went up to her and got into a conversation with her, and where we found out that she had just been thinking about what happens after death, and yeah, we told her the gospel, and it was so clear that she was really moved by it. We encouraged her to seek Jesus, gave her some things, and yeah, that was a an encounter that I really really know that God used, and I still pray with that and many others like it, that that's a seed that he's going to grow. But yeah, there's other stories. People came back and told of demons cast out and miracles being done. People were baptized, people were converted, and then connected to churches back wherever they come from. Learn the reality of the spiritual, which can be quite scary actually, but it's amazing what God does. I learned the importance of prayer and how powerful prayer is. You know, this was us going out was all done, you know, through the power of God, and you know, we cannot do any of this in our own power.
What have been the struggles along your journey, and how has God helped you to overcome those?
Yeah, I think my struggles have maybe come more from internal struggles, maybe less obvious struggles, but things like fear of the future, or you know, struggling with giving up control. Yeah. I've recently, really, over the last year, I struggled a lot because of kind of the build-up of stress and kind of responsibilities and commitments weighing down on me, and you know, feeling like I'm underwater and I'm swimming to the surface, but as I'm climbing higher and higher, the surface is rising and rising, and I never get to the top. And you know, I know so many people, you know, anxiety and these things. So many people have had these struggles too, and time and time again, whenever I've come back to God, and you know, I've started journaling. When I'm struggling with something, I come to God in prayer. I'll write it down. I'll pour out my heart, and every time without fail, whenever I've turned to God for help, you know, he might not have given me the answers. He might not have helped me in the way exactly that I thought he would. But he always has been there to pick me back up, and I've come through. You know, trials are like being refined by fire. You come through, and you're stronger, and I feel like God's really brought me through things like that. Another thing I've struggled with is spiritual laziness, and you know, this lack of desire to live for God, to talk to God, to pray, to read the Bible. A couple of years ago, I was really struggling. I had so many doubts, so many questions, because I didn't see my beliefs in reality. Like, my head knowledge was not my heart and my experiential knowledge. But yeah, this again, God brought me through that to a place where now I'm so much stronger in my faith.
What does that journaling process kind of look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got my journal with me, and yeah, I just, whenever I'm struggling with something, or if I have questions, if you know, I find myself confused about something and just really want to ask God, if I have a realization of something, or feel like God has revealed something to me, I just write it down. It's kind of just a record, really, of my my heart. Yeah, and I find it's so helpful for me, because I can look back and see God's faithfulness, and to see how He has answered my prayers, and how He is growing me towards the likeness of Christ. So yeah, I thoroughly recommend it. It's a very, very helpful way to be aware of of God in your life?